Hi, my name is Clark Bossert, and I'd like to say thank you for taking the time to join us for today's Canary webinar, Making the Most of Your Process Data. I'm excited to take you through a tour of the system and show you how the Canary system makes it easy to use your process data. We'd like to get to know you better, so before we dive in, I'd like to encourage you to post the country or region where you live, along with your industry and any questions that you might have about the Canary system or process data historians in general. For the first 25 minutes of this webinar, we'll start with an overview of how the Canary system actually works, followed by a review of our flexible licensing model. From there, we'll dive into about a 20-minute demo of the actual software so you can see the power of the historian to collect and store data, contextualize it into useful information, and visualize it in a way that empowers you to make better decisions. At the conclusion of the demo, we'll have a live question and answer period, but we're also standing by in the chat if you have any questions or comments that you'd like to share at any time throughout the duration of the webinar. Now, to kick things off, we'd like to acknowledge that you probably have big ideas about what you'd like to do with your data. After speaking with thousands of engineers and companies over the years, we have discovered that in a perfect world, you'd want to store everything, do it at a high polling rate, assign context to the raw data and make it accessible to every person or third-party tool in your organization, and finally, interpret and act on this data in a way that maximizes the potential of your operation. These are just some of the goals that we help our customers achieve. But at the end of the day, we understand that engineers, operators, executives, IT folks, and everyone from the plant floor all the way up to the C-suite all just want to use their data. And when you have the right tools in place that can make it easy to use your process data and automate your workflows, the effect can be transformational on the efficiency of your operation and the overall confidence of your teams. So my question to you is, what's holding you back? And the answer to that is probably a couple different things. Database management can leave you feeling frustrated and stuck. Continuing operations with the production mindset while balancing security is a challenge. And maximizing time series data using other solutions on the market is just way too expensive. The return on investment may not be realized for years and years, but with the Canary system, you really can transform your operation. Canary provides you with the ability to collect and store vast amounts of process data, add context to your data, which makes it more relevant, and finally, the system gives your team intuitive, easy-to-use tools and secure database access. Now today, it's all about data, and I'm really excited to talk to you about how the Canary system can help you easily use your process data to make the right operational decisions. For over 35 years, Canary has helped engineers and organizations just like yours. The Canary system has been installed over 20,000 times in 70 different countries, and the Canary system is currently in use in every major industry. The Canary solution is a great fit for large enterprise solutions, small utilities, and everything else in between. Every company we work with has the same core ideas of what they want to do with their data. Customers and system integrators trust Canary to guide them through the process of transforming complex data into easy-to-understand information. From a single site to hundreds of facilities, the Canary platform is designed to make using your process data easy. And as you learn about the Canary system, remember that not every deployment is going to require the full scope of the system in order to solve your data problems. Some of our clients solve many of their problems just by using the simple trending tools and Axiom, while complex solutions love how Canary can help them adjust tag naming structures and organize tags into asset models. So let's take a closer look at the Canary system. We guide our customers to success by following these 3 simple steps. And the first step we'll talk about today is collecting and storing your data. It all starts with the Canary collectors. These data collectors help you reach out to all industry standard protocols, making it easy for you to log data directly from your process into our system. And we don't charge for these data collectors. They're all included as a part of the Canary system. We work with MQTT Sparkplug-B, OPC UA and DA, various SCADA systems, SQL databases, CSV files, and the web and .NET APIs make it easy for you to create your own custom collectors. A typical architecture would look something like this, with your PLCs and devices out in the field, and you probably already have an OPC server or an MQTT broker that your devices are speaking to. We would install the collector software on the OPC server. then build out a Canary Historian server with the rest of our software, which the client tools would connect to. Now, it's important to note that the Historian does not impact the PLCs or devices, and it can't write records back through an OPC server or an MQTT broker to those devices. The client tools have no way to impact the OPC server because that access stops at the Historian. Now, I would like to talk about our store and forward technology. The Canary Collector will be installed local to your OPC server or MQTT broker machine. We will also install the sender service. The sender service will point across the network to the Canary Historian, where it is matched to a receiver service that is local to the Historian. So, the data is configured with the Canary Collector, the sender service pulls that data from the OPC server, and then pushes it across the network to the receiver service. The receiver service checks it into the Historian and communicates to the sender that the message was received and written to the database. If for any reason the network is not available, that's okay. All the data will be cached locally, and the administrator will be notified that we are no longer receiving data into the Historian from that logging instance. When the network connection is available again, we will automatically backfill the data in real time. The system allows for dual logging and sending data from one sender to multiple receivers and historians. And when we talk about collecting and storing your data, it all comes down to the database. And the Canary Historian is a NoSQL time series database specifically built for process data and industrial automation. The Canary Historian has been optimized for performance, and best of all, no database administration skills are required to maintain the Historian. Plus, it's highly scalable, so whether you're tracking 100 tags or 2 million tags, it's the exact same software install. All that changes is the licensing. No matter how large your system gets, the performance remains constant and does not degrade over time. You can achieve over 1.5 million writes per second, and you can also read over 2.5 million reads per second out of the Historian. Recently, at one of our larger user groups of upstream oil and gas, we were asked to do a test of 1 million updates per second using standard server equipment. So 4 different machines were built out, each one with 250,000 tags in the sender service. They are all pushing across a standard network to a 1 million tag Historian. If we look at the Historian, what we see is the receiver service picking up 1 million tags and moving them into the Historian. You will see a little fluctuation in the updates per second, and that's where the store and forward comes into play. We ran this test and monitored machine resources running a standard basic server of 6 core, 3 GHz. What we were looking for was that we were maintaining our CPU usage under 20% and keeping our memory somewhere between 50 to 60% on the machine. Throughout the course of the test, what we found was that we were able to successfully do this with a basic off-the-rack server. Okay, so maybe you're wondering, what is a tag? Well, a tag is a single stream of time series data that is also referred to as points, channels, or items, and it consists of a TVQ, or a timestamp, value, and quality. It also includes metadata properties. These could be engineering units or high-low set points. They're all fully customizable data properties. Once all the data is written to the Historian, it's important to start thinking about how we will compress it in order to keep our data footprint as small as possible. Canary has developed a unique lossless compression algorithm with best-in-class performance of 3 times data compression, and because it's lossless, we're never interpolating data or cutting data values. The unique raw values are being stored every time. So in review, when talking about collecting and storing data, the Canary system is out-of-the-box ready, meaning everything is pre-integrated in the Canary system. Between store and forward and lossless compression, you'll never have to worry about data loss, and ultimately Canary creates a database that you can depend on. That wraps up the first step. If you have any questions, please go ahead and drop them in the chat. Now, step 2 is all about assigning context to your data. The common problem that we see many companies face is something like this. They've got a piece of equipment, maybe a site or a SCADA system, with a tag naming structure that's being followed and written to in the historian. And then, somewhere else in the organization, there's another piece of equipment, a site or SCADA system, that's doing the same thing, but it's using a different set of tag names while also being stored in the historian. And normally, this won't impact production. The operation will likely work just fine, even with the different naming conventions. However, it does create a big problem when your engineers are trying to generate reports on the data, trend the data, and just trying to learn from the data, because they're forced to remember all of these different tag naming structures. So imagine if you could leave the operation alone, not change the PLC, not change the SCADA system, but unify the naming space so that for reporting purposes, all of your tags follow one desired format. And with a Canary system, that's exactly what you can do. You have the ability to create virtual views of the data, influencing how the client can interact with the data without ever altering the data in its physical storage. When a client reads data from the historian, the Views service is the filter that the client looks through to browse, retrieve tags, and read data from the historian. By utilizing the Views service, you can essentially change the way that the client sees and interacts with the data inside the historian. You can reshape and alias the tag format inside the historian without actually changing the historical record. If you create multiple views of that historical record, then you can offer very specific security-based permissions to the client that govern how they see the data inside the historian. So, does the client see the data through filter 1 or filter 2? Well, Canary has given the administrator the power to control who has access to the information based on the needs of your organization. This is accomplished through security permissions or Active Directory login. And the virtual views offer tremendous functionality because logging configurations are totally customizable. Now here's an example of how virtual views can assign context to your data. Inside the historian, you've got these 10 pieces of I/O. Now, let's apply a virtual view. And now the client sees this unified naming space. If we switch over to line 2, the client will still see the same format, but the tags retain their uniqueness. Notice the client view as they switch back to line number 1. The client sees a structured unified naming space, and remember, the PLCs or devices never needed to be touched or altered in any way. So maybe you're wondering, how do you create the virtual views? Well, regular expressions give you the ability to restructure tag names while maintaining tag uniqueness. And if your tag names don't have as much logic as you would like, then that can be supplemented through uploading a CSV file or SQL database that may already exist within your organization. Okay, so what else can be done with the virtual views? Well, once tags have been restructured and the unified naming space has been established, you can also create custom asset models to further empower your team and really unleash those data rock stars. And I bet your organization is already talking about your equipment from an asset viewpoint. So, for example, let's say you have a site with 3 lines, and your lines are made up of boilers, fillers, and water mains. It might look something like this. Notice how line 2 has 2 fillers, and line 3 has 2 boilers. So how can we use virtual views to capture all of the assets on this site? Well, we have the unified naming space for the tags. And notice in this particular naming space, the second branch of the tag name tells us what the piece of equipment is and the instance or account of the equipment. So you see line 1 has a boiler with 3 tags, a filler with 5 tags, and a water main with 2 tags. You can use the virtual views to create common tag names and then group them into assets. So going back to the site example, we've got 4 boilers. So let's see how virtual views would handle this particular asset. Using that unified namespace model that we've built out, you've got line1.boiler1 and then the 3 common asset tag names. And the same with each of the other boilers on the other lines. Now, common tag names with unique identifiers show you exactly where the asset is and what else it impacts. Alright, so what's the benefit? Well, beyond giving you better organization, it gives your team the ability to make specific requests based on asset types. For example, you can say, "Show me all boiler temperature tags." More specifically, it helps automation experts automate their workflows. Filtering based on asset tag conditions means you can immediately see all boilers with a temperature that's outside of your desired range. There really is power in the ability to automate workflows and easily use your process data because you no longer need to hunt for information, but can instead quickly generate reports with the information that you need. It's key to point out that models do not break if the assets don't match up perfectly, and if you have a dynamic process where you're constantly bringing assets online or offline, Virtual Views looks for tags to be dropped out of the historian and it updates your model automatically. Now that you've been introduced to the virtual views, let's move on and examine another way Canary can assign context to your data. The next piece of software in the system is the calculation engine. If you think about it, your car's dashboard is feeding you raw process data. How fast am I going? How many miles are on the odometer? How much fuel is left in the tank? That's all raw data. Now, if a check engine light comes on, you're looking at what we would call condition-based data. And many cars today also have an indicator of range, or how many miles you can drive given your current fuel level. Well, that's running some type of calculation to estimate that KPI. If we look at these three different types of data, traditionally in the historian, all we have is raw data. But if we have these raw data tags and then group them into assets, we can create other calculated tags of condition-based asset rules and calculated KPIs. The calculation engine is powerful because you can deploy a single calculation to all instances of an asset type. It runs in real time while also backfilling, and more than 70 functions are available. If we look at our asset tags of a boiler, we can see there is a temperature tag. Every 5 seconds or 1 second, it's pulling data to get that new temperature. We could run a calculation anytime there's a boiler to ask it to use the temperature tag and give us an average 60-minute temperature for that tag. Just like for the filler, we could use the out bottle count and out bottles rejected to determine the percentage of rejected bottles. Just as you can do condition-based tag calculations, you can also key off those calculations to monitor asset health. You can create a series of logic or rules to determine whether an asset is in an alert state or not. Then you can do reporting and pull analytics based around the events. Event monitoring provides condition-based asset monitoring, reporting based on event performance, and analytics surrounding the event durations. Now, constructing a rule is the trigger for the event, and the simple rule would be to start the event if the level of the tank gets below 25% and the temperature of the liquid gets above 80 degrees. So we ran this with simulation data, and what we got back is a list of instances of events within the conditions we structured at various sites. And notice, you get the source, the start and end time, the duration, as well as analytic properties associated with the event. All of this information is customizable, and it can be tailored to fit your needs. So that wraps up the second step, and now let's focus our attention on maximizing your operation. This is where we talk about the different pieces of software that are client-facing. And it all starts with Axiom, which is our trending, dashboarding, and reporting tool. It's built with HTML, so it works with any modern web browser, and Axiom is designed for self-serve reporting. It changes the traditional model of the client asking the SCADA team to produce a trend chart, and it makes it easy for the end user to produce their own trend charts. Here are just a few examples of charts that we've produced in Axiom. It's easy to incorporate trend charts and tables of data. You can also add things like donut gauges or spark lines, and the drag and drop design features make building dashboards a breeze. And remember, because it's HTML based, Axiom is accessible from a cell phone or a tablet out in the field. It can be used to build applications that are less about trend lines and more about looking at data tables or graphs. We like to say that Axiom is a completely blank slate that allows you to customize and build out whatever it is you need to visualize. And you'll see this in the live demo in just a few minutes. The Excel add-in is another powerful tool provided by the Canary system. We know that many of your team members are already using Excel, and the add-in enables you to connect your Canary data to Excel. This helps you quickly solve reporting needs and get raw and aggregated process data out of the historian and back to your customers. It also gives you the ability to build event monitoring on the fly. So here's a quick demonstration of just how easy it is to use the Excel add-in. First, you get a tag list, put those in column A, click the last value, and just like that, in just a few clicks and a few seconds, you've got the last known value for more than 500 tags. The Canary system makes it easy to get your data out of the historian and into other systems and pieces of software, and that's where Canary connectors help. These can include our publish service, our web API, MQTT publishing client, SCADA connectors, and ODBC connector to expose the historian in a SQL-like manner to make queries against the database. And an OPC HDA server speaks directly to our historian. Other than the ODBC connector, which we add for just a small fee, we don't charge for the data collectors. This way, you can configure a deployment that will meet your needs without worrying about the impact to the bottom line. All right, so that wraps up the 3 steps of how we can help you in your journey towards digital transformation. Now that you have a basic understanding of how the Canary system works, I'd like to conclude this overview section of the webinar by talking about our licensing model. We believe that you can't make good decisions without good information, and that's why our transparent pricing is made publicly available on our website so you can quickly price a system size and configuration that meets your needs in seconds. It's also important to note that all of the features we discussed in this webinar are included with the purchase of each Canary system. Our data collectors and publishing tools are free to use, making it easy for you to get your data in and out of the system, and every system comes with unlimited concurrent Axiom visualization and Excel add-in clients. The only decisions that you need to make when purchasing a Canary system are the total number of tags that you'd like to store, whether you'd like to purchase the system on a subscription or perpetual license, and where you'd like to host the data, either in your cloud, on-premise, or in the Canary cloud. And that's it. You can also provide a quote for an enterprise license agreement upon request. This would provide an unlimited number of Canary systems with all licensing restrictions removed. And getting started is super easy. We offer free proof of concepts and free 90-day trials. Once you've tested the Canary system, you can rest assured knowing that its price is just a fraction of the cost of other solutions on the market. It's been our passion since the beginning to provide the premier enterprise historian solution that can do it all and at a price that's fair. Many industrial companies waste huge amounts of resources, they miss critical opportunities, and they end up overpaying for software that can take years to yield an adequate return on investment. And all of this is because they don't have access to an affordable tool that consolidates real-time operational process data into intuitive, actionable reports. When it's easy to use your process data, and you can clearly see the story that your assets are telling, your teams end up working with much greater confidence, your processes run more efficiently, and you're able to make better decisions based on clearer information. In summary, the Canary Historian has simple yet powerful tools that will help you get the most out of the data that drives your process and strategy. This concludes the overview portion of the Canary system for this webinar, and now we'd like to show you a demonstration of the software.
So now I'd like to show you how easy it is to create an Axiom dashboard like I have showing up here. What I want to do is really just take you back to the beginning on how easy it is to install and configure the system. We'll get a logging session running, getting live data into the historian, and then we'll build out a dashboard that will display some of that data. So I'm going to go ahead and get started from the very beginning. So as you're working with your Canary representative, maybe you've requested a demo license so you can test Canary out, or maybe you've purchased Canary and we send you the license. The first thing that's going to happen is you're going to get an email with a link to download the installer. So here on my desktop, I've downloaded the installer and I've opened it up. So this is the actual installer. Installing Canary is really as simple as checking off each component that I wish to install on my server. Maybe out on the edge, I'm installing data collectors, so I could choose which collectors I'm installing there on that machine, and then from the client end, what client tools I'm going to install. So once I've selected the Canary components, I can simply hit the install button, and that takes 5 minutes or so. It's a pretty quick process. I don't want to waste our time here on today's presentation just to watch it install, but it is a very quick and easy process. So once we've installed Canary, then we can go ahead and launch the Canary Administrator. So this is the Canary Administrator. Each one of these blue tiles you see on my screen here represent one of the installed Canary components. These are just simply Windows services running on the server. And I could click on any one of these to go in and do some configuration on that part of the Canary system. Now, the first thing we do after we've installed Canary and launched this, it's important to license the system. So we have the license tile here I can click on. On my system, I already have everything licensed, so I can see what is actually licensed on this machine for Canary. Licensing itself is very simple. Over on the right, we have two options to license your Canary system. If you've already been provided with a license key, you can enter it and then just add the license manually by accepting the key. In most cases, though, as long as your machine has internet access, you can fill out this simple form and then just check off the Canary components that you wish to license and simply click the Get License button. And then immediately, all those licenses will be displayed here on the screen. So installing and licensing, it's that simple. So now we have an active running Canary system, and I'm going to go ahead and configure a data logging session. And for today's presentation, I'm going to go ahead and configure our OPC UA collector. So it would be represented right here on the OPC collector tile. So I have this really nice blank window right now, but to get things started, I'll just go to where we configure the logging session. And it's as simple as clicking on the new session button. Now, the first thing I'll need to do down here at the bottom, I'll need to go ahead and give a name to this session. For today, I'm just going to have one session, so I don't really necessarily need to change the name. I'll just leave it defaulted to session 1. Now I need to tell the collector where we're going to send the data. Basically, where is the historian installed at? So I just need to come in and put in the IP address or the machine name. Next, I need to determine where the data in the historian will reside at that we're going to be logging to. I'll just need to pick from either an existing data set, or I can just create a new one by typing in a new data set name. So now that I've defined where we're going to be logging the data to on the Canary server, I need to configure our connection to the OPC server. So I need to just put in the host name or the URL, where the server resides. So I have one here in the office. That's the name of the machine. And then I just need to put in the port number we're going to open up so we can access that. So once I've filled out this information, now I can go ahead and browse this OPC server device I'm connecting to. Just click the browse button here. So here I can see all the nodes on that OPC server. So for today, I'm just going to stick with simulation examples. So I'm going to just choose this particular node. And that's going to show all the tags available on that node. So I can choose one or any or all of these, which I'm going to just go ahead and choose all of them here. And I'm going to go ahead and say OK. And that's going to create our list of tags that we're going to log data to. Now the tags themselves are assigned to a group, so each session can have multiple groups. So if I highlight group 1 here, these are the group settings. If I'd like to add more metadata properties to the tags, let's say for example kilowatts, under my tag settings for kilowatts, maybe I would like to add some extra metadata fields here. I can simply go up here to the corner where it says tag properties. I'm going to go ahead and say, you know what, I would like to have a field for engineering units. Maybe I'd like to have a location, maybe where this particular device is at out in the field, for example. So I've added 2 extra tag properties. I can go ahead and apply those. So now you'll see there's those 2 extra fields, and it's created those columns as well here for all the tags. But for kilowatts, I'm going to go ahead and say, you know what, I want KW. I know that this particular device is maybe located at the southeast station or wherever it may be geographically. So once I've added those 2 metadata points, you can see how they populate here for kilowatts. Now, I may have a list of tags that number into the hundreds or even thousands for this particular logging session. It'd be kind of hard to keep highlighting the tag and adding individual engineering units and locations. So I can simply, if I have maybe this tag list with all their metadata properties pre-filled in and maybe a CSV file, I could do something as simple as just paste, copy that file and then just paste it, and it'll populate my tag list with the appropriate metadata properties. So it can save you a lot of time that way. I'm going to go ahead and apply my changes. It's going to say, do you want to create that data set, which I had manually typed in, the Canary Demo data set. So now everything is set. If I go back to my status page, now it's not blank anymore. I do have 1 session. If I hit the play button, that's going to actually make the connection live from the OPC server to our collector. And blue means we're live. So if I want to make sure I'm getting live data, I can just drill down into this logging session here, down to the group level. And then within the group, there's my tags. And I can see there I have timestamps, values, and qualities. So now I know that I'm getting live data. So back to our home page, I'm going to go ahead and open up the Historian tile. So within my Historian, I have these different blue tiles. These represent all my individual data sets. So a data set is nothing more than a subfolder where we're collecting data, differentiating one group of tags from another, maybe by location or asset type, whatever the reason might be. But you'll notice right here is that Canary Demo data set that I just created. I can see where it says writers. Those are the tags that we're writing to the historian. There's the 45 tags, and I'm getting live updates. So if I want to just take a look at that data, I can drill into this data set. Now the next level I come to is where we store the daily files. So every night at midnight, every data set will roll over to a new daily file. So tomorrow, when I come in, I'd have a second tile here for April the 14th, for example. But if I want to take a look at the data in this file, I can drill in. I can see on the left here are all my tags. There's 45 of them. Again, I could have thousands of tags. I can simply do a search. Maybe I'm looking for my kilowatts. I can start typing that in, and there's my kilowatts tag. And guess what? You can see I already have a lot of updates already. Now on the bottom left here are the properties. So again, these are our metadata properties we've added. So I feel at this point, I've been pretty successful. I've installed the software, I've licensed it, I've configured the OPC UA logging session, and I can see the data is updating in the historian. So from an admin perspective, everything is up and running. It was that simple. So now I want to switch hats from an admin perspective over to an operator or end user perspective, where we want to utilize Axiom to visualize this data. And so we can make a trend chart, look at live trending data, and then create a dashboard and create an automated report. So there's a few things I'm going to show you in the Axiom application next. So again, back to where we started, here is an actual live Axiom application. In this particular example, I'm monitoring some substations on a power grid. On the left, I kind of created more of like a heat map of each individual power transformer. Obviously, the higher temperatures are showing in red, the cooler ones are in blue, the ones in the normal range are green, for example. So I can get a real quick overview of all my assets out in the field from one screen. That's, again, the power of our asset modeling inside of our virtual views. Here in the middle is a live trending screen showing those same temperatures in a trend format. And then on the right, I can see an asset overview based on stations. So these are the actual substations, and I can click on those, and I can see each time I move to a new station, the KPIs we're monitoring on one of these stations updates to reflect that current asset. So at the bottom here, I have more of a live report that updates based on criteria set in the filter bar here. I can see that it looks like we're looking at a temperature difference between internal and external that's greater than 40, or the internal temperature is above 90 degrees. If any assets match that, they populate here on my list. So these are just a couple quick examples of how you can create a dashboard based on assets out in the field and quickly pull all these KPIs together in a really easy to read report. So me as an operator, I can monitor an entire power grid and I can see what assets across that grid are maybe in a alarm state or some type of condition that requires further analysis. So I want to show you how quick and easy it is to build a screen like this. And I should mention, again, Axiom is browser-based. You can see that I do have I had it hidden here, but I do have Axiom running on my machine in Chrome. So this is an actual URL that accesses this dashboard. Now, some organizations may not even permit browsers to run. I also have the ability, I can download Axiom to my desktop as a thin client application, and it operates exactly the same as the browser client. So I'm going to come to my main menu bar, and what I want to do is start with creating a new chart to begin with. Axiom is divided really up between charts and applications. Sometimes we call applications dashboards, but the chart itself is a very powerful tool with a lot of features. I'm going to go ahead and just create a new chart. It'll prompt me, I can open an existing chart, or I can add trends to a brand new chart. So this window that I'm looking at the moment here, on the left are the branches of the data structure. The first branch is really just the name of the machine I'm signed into, the server. In this case, it's my local host. And beneath that are different views of the data. Out of the box, you'll always have a view that shows you the historian itself. Now, my historian is called S. Ebersol, but beneath the historian, the next level is all my data sets. Those are those blue tiles I was just showing you a few minutes ago on the Canary Administrator. So, for example, maybe I want to stick with my substation data. I can highlight that, and I can see on the right here are all the tags under that substation. But let me just back up, though. If you recall, we created that Canary Demo data set. If I click on that, now you can see here's all the tags that I originally added to our logging session. So I want to start and just show you how you can see live data on my trend chart. So if I go ahead and add these and close this window, so you'll see how the trend chart is created and we have those 4 tags and I'm getting live data coming in off of the right-hand scale edge here. Obviously, I just started logging this data a few minutes ago, as you saw in real time. So prior to a few minutes ago, you can see there's no data. You can see the key at the bottom shows the names of the tags that I've selected and what their live or most recent values are. Keep in mind, the trend chart itself is very customizable. I can determine what shows up in the key, the data that shows up here on my time bar. It's all based on the user that's signed in. So I'm signed in here as S. Ebersol. Could log out. Someone else would, using this machine, would be able to sign in with their credentials. Again, this is all based on Active Directory. So it just passes through to your Active Directory credentials. But this is also based on my user sign-in. I can adjust different preferences. What I want to do is show you some tags that have an extended amount of data. So I'm going to actually just come back to my menu bar here, and we're going to do another new chart. We're going to add trends. This time I'm going to stick with my substation data set. Now again, you may have hundreds or thousands of tags in that data set, so maybe I just want to look for my winding temperature tags. I know that they end in WTI, so if I just do a search, now you can see how I narrowed it down to just all my winding temperatures for my power transformer assets. So maybe I just want to monitor the 3 temperatures for each of the 3 power transformers at the Elm station. So now my tags are on my chart. I can see I have extended history. Again, based on my user preference, when I create a chart, it shows me by default the most recent hour of data. Maybe I'd prefer to just click on that time bar and say, hey, you know what? I want to see the last 8 hours of data for maybe the most recent shift. So it quickly loads 8 hours of data. You can see going back to 3:32 this morning up till the current time. Maybe I want to go back, maybe and see the last week of data. So it very quickly went from 8 hours to 7 days of data. Maybe I want to go back even further, one more update here. We'll go 30 days. So it just took maybe a second longer, from 7 days to 30 days. This is the power of the historian, how quickly we can retrieve large amounts of data. Now maybe I'd like to zoom in on a certain period on this trend graph. I can change my cursor mode. Maybe this area right here where I see on my blue temperature trend on the second power transformer has that large drop in the data. I want to maybe zoom in and have a closer look there. So now I went from 30 days. You can see it's just a little over 1 day of data now. Maybe further I want to just say, hey, you know what, right here was that range. I really wanted to get a little more high resolution look at the data. Now I can see, okay, maybe there was a maintenance issue and I'd like to add an annotation to the chart. I can just come up here to my annotation option, and maybe right here on this point in time I want to put a note about some maintenance I did. Recalibrated the sensor. Or maybe I wanted to copy and paste in a few paragraphs of information. Regardless the text that I enter in here, once I save it, that will store back on that timestamp in the historian. So it's a permanent part of the archive now. So in the future, when someone looks at this trend chart, they'll be able to go to that point in time and see that note. And they can even click on it and they'll be able to see, of course, the timestamp and then the actual time, the date and the time that note was entered and which user entered it. So let me go back 30 most recent minutes and put this in live mode. So now we're trending live data for the most recent 30 minutes. Maybe I want to do a couple quick comparisons, maybe just take my yellow trend and overlay it with the blue trend and do a quick analysis that way. Maybe I would like to go ahead and auto band these back to where they originally were. Maybe I'd like to do more of a permanent banding by just doing a left click and then choosing one of my trends to link the bands together. So now both the red and the blue trend are sharing the same scale. Maybe I'm not quite as interested in just seeing the live raw values for each of these 3 power transformer temperatures. Maybe I'd like to see what the average temperature is. So from an operator perspective, in a lot of systems, they can't create any type of ad hoc trends. They have to go back to the SCADA manager and ask them maybe to talk to the PLC programmer to go ahead and program that average temperature in the PLC so that it'll actually become a tag, and then they can see that tag by searching for it and pulling it into the trend chart. Well, here they can bypass all that because we have the option when we go into our edit tool, there's a calculator tool here. So they can just do an ad hoc calculation. Maybe we want to see the average temperature, and then I can just simply put in that equation. And I can just say, hey, I want to go ahead and take all 3 temperatures, just add them together, close the parentheses, and then simply divide by 3. So that is a simple average temperature equation. So you can see there's my average temperature. It's been added. There's the gray trend at the bottom. That's my average. So maybe I just want to monitor the average. Great. I can hide my other trends, for example. I could just say, hey, I want to say these 3 trends, I don't want them to show. I only want to look at the average temperature. And then maybe I want to have a high limit on that average temperature that says, hey, if the average temperature, maybe if it gets above 100 degrees, I want the trend line to change color and fill in all the area on the chart above that threshold. Just in the event that we're never really exceeding that threshold of 100, I at least want to have maybe a high limit line on the chart. So now you can see there's my high limit line, and my average temperature is showing up in red any point over that limit line. I'm going to actually show these temperatures again, and I'm going to actually hide my average temperature for the moment. So maybe I want to do a historical data analysis and compare that to what's happening in real time. Maybe I know on this second trend here, this blue trend, this temperature for this power transformer, it just seems like that's running lower than what we would expect. I think maybe there's a problem. Maybe there's something failing and it's cooling off because it's shutting down, whatever the case might be. I know that 30 days ago, I just had this unit serviced and it was running optimally. So I'd like to go back and add that trend a second time. So there's that same tag. I'm going to select it here and add it to my chart. So now you see there's an orange trend. I'm going to go ahead and put the blue and orange beside each other here. And I'm going to select that new orange trend. And I'm just going to give it a new display name to differentiate it from the actual live tag. So I'm going to eventually be time shifting this back 30 days. So maybe I just want to say this is going to be the 30-day historical data. Okay, and then I'm going to come to where we actually do a time shift. Here's where I can shift it back in time. I'm going to say, hey, I want to shift it back in time 30 days ago. And I'm also going to increase the line thickness here so it kind of stands out a little better. So now I want to band both trends together so that they show up on the same axis here. Here's my blue trend, that's the live temperature. And you can see the orange trend, that was the data 30 days ago. So it was running at a higher temperature then. So now I know there's definitely something going on here. So big temperature difference. So it's just things like this within our trend tool that allow an operator to really do some data analysis and create more within the tool than what they're used to being able to do in their existing tool set. So if this is actually a trend chart that I would like to use in the future, then I can come to my menu bar and save this chart. Now I can save it in different directories. So maybe I want to save this for anybody to access publicly, or maybe this is just going to be something for me at my own station. No one else really cares about looking at the data the way I do. I want to save it under a private folder or read-only, meaning that anybody can still access this, but they cannot make any modifications to the chart. I'm just going to make it a publicly available chart here, Canary Demo chart, and save that. So I can see that has been saved. It shows me the directory where that's stored in. So now what I want to do is jump over and create a dashboard within Axiom. So I'm going to go back to my main menu and we're going to say new application. This is the design tool. So these are all the controls that I can drag and drop right into my, what I would call my canvas. Right now it's a blank canvas. Really the first thing before we start designing is every tool or control here has its own list of properties. So when I highlight the screen itself, it gives me properties that I can change. So for example, the screen resolution is going to be important. I may have folks out in the field using iPhones. So if I'm designing a screen that's made to put up on the wall of my corporate office on a high resolution large screen, that would still scale down on their devices out in the field, but they could hardly read it because it went from a high resolution down to just a certain pixel area. So it's going to be tough to visualize. So what we want to do is know ahead of time who's going to be using this particular application. Is it going to be someone out in the field in their truck looking at their iPhone, or is it going to be someone at a desk on a standard screen? I'm going to go ahead though, in this case, just design it to fit my screen that I'm running right now. Now I could fine tune this if I wanted to get very specific, 1618 by 970, great. I'm going to go ahead though and start designing in my screen here. So if I go back to my controls menu, first of all, if you recall, we just created a trend graph. Well, guess what? There's a trend graph control I can drag and drop in. So I could just put this anywhere on my screen, and then I can say, hey, you know what? I'm going to leave this blank. So anybody that's looking at this dashboard when it's complete, they can still go down and add their own trends to this chart. Or I can say, you know what? I want to import that chart in that I just created and saved. So as soon as I do that, it's going to remember the most recent trend chart. We kind of make it intuitive that way. I could search for other charts, but right there's my Canary Demo chart. Then I can go ahead and open that up. So there we go. There's my trend chart that we had just created. Resize that however I want. Now I have all the other space here to start adding more controls within my dashboard. So the next control I want to highlight that's very important is our asset template control. When you're monitoring multiple assets across different sites, as I mentioned when we started talking about Axiom, it's nice to be able to bring those all into one window. So once I drag and drop in my asset template control, it's going to show me my different views of the data I previously created. They're called virtual views, but I want to stick with my substation view for the moment. And then I can go and choose the type of assets that are living under that view. So I want to focus maybe on transformers. And when I apply that, it's automatically going to discover all my power transformers within that view. That's a great thing about the asset tool. Even in the future, as I add more maybe power transformers out in the field and they start sending data to the historian, it'll auto-discover those and add those to my list. Because you can see right now it found 13 power transformers. As I'm designing here, just make this a little bigger here. Each asset will have its own asset panel here. So if I highlight the first one represented by Elm Station 1, you can see I can scroll down and see all my different power transformers. If we would add a 14th one out in the field, there'd be another box that would pop up here representing that new one. So the great thing about the asset template is anything I do in one asset panel, it propagates down through all my assets in this asset template control. So let's just say I want to have something simple like a donut gauge monitoring the live temperature of my power transformer. I can come over here and find donut gauge and just drag and drop that in. Now once I drop it into that panel, you already see it's going to propagate across all 13. But it wants me to go ahead and choose which tag within a power transformer asset I want to monitor with this donut gauge. So I just want to select my winding temperature tag. And now you can see I have live temperature readings across all my assets. Now I can do some fine tuning here. Maybe if I go into my properties for the donut gauge, well, first of all, I can just manually drag or grab it in and make it larger. But here, for example, first thing, maybe I want to make the scale go up to 150. And then I'd like it to change color based on the temperature level. So I know that, for example, I'm looking at a gauge and the temperature is 105 or greater. We'll just say greater than or equal to 105. I want the color of that gauge to be red. And then maybe if the temperature drops below 105, I would consider that more of a normal range. But if it gets too low, maybe below 97, say less than or equal to 97, then I want it to be blue. Okay, so now as I scroll down through here, the ones that are below that threshold are blue, the ones above the 105 threshold are red, and in between, our Goldilocks here, not too hot, not too cold. I can see it's just a neutral color because we're good, with those particular assets. Now I want to add maybe a couple other controls real quick. Maybe I want to have a spark chart here. I want to drag and drop in a spark chart, and this time I want to monitor the input kilovolts here. Go into my properties. Maybe I want to see the last 8 hours of data. I want to see a digital readout or a display of my live data. I can add a value box, for example. Again, we're going to link it to that same input kilovolt tag. So I can see the last 8 hours in a trend format, but then I can see the live value currently. So let's go ahead and make some property adjustments real quick. Make it larger in font. We'll center that up. Now maybe I don't need to see to that level of precision with 2 decimals after the, or 2 values after the decimal point. Maybe just 1 value. I can change my value format. I can change this to different things other than just the value. Maybe I want to see the current time or the quality of the data. So we can adjust value formatting, but I'll keep it real simple for now. Maybe I'd like to have a label here too, just so I know that this is input kilovolts. Maybe here in the upper right corner, I just want to have a table showing some of the recent data. I'm going to drop in my data table here, and it's going to ask me, okay, what tags do I want to add to my table? I'll just use these same tags that we have in our trend chart. And I'm going to just resize some things here just to make this look a little neater. And maybe I want to be able to see the last 100 values, and then I really just want to see some averages. I don't want to see every single update. I just want to come here and apply an aggregate. We have over 40 different aggregates, most of these from the OPC Foundation. So I'm going to do a simple time-weighted average. So we're going to apply that aggregate, and then I just need to do the interval. So maybe I want to just see the 1 minute average data. So now every minute, if you see here, it's just 1 minute readings now, and this is the average temperature every minute for each of those power transformers. I may be really happy with what I have here. I can go ahead and, first of all, just put this in live mode, see how it looks. Maybe I'd like to have a filter here that says, hey, whenever any of these assets, these power transformers, whenever the WTI, the winding temperature tag, is above 108, let's say, I only want to see those assets. So it went from 13 down to 2 right now. So I can see I have 2 assets above 100, or at least at 108. The idea here is, as an operator, maybe I don't want to continually scroll through all my assets to see the ones that have too high of a temperature. Because I could have hundreds of these. So it'd be easier just to monitor the ones that are hitting that threshold. This is how you can do it. You can get very detailed with your filter criteria that you assign here. Now, there's so much that I could continue to cover in the features here of the dashboard, and we have a lot of good online resources that really dive into that for you. But to keep within our time constraints, what I want to do here is just a couple final things. I'm going to go ahead and save this application. Again, I'll save it publicly, and I'll call this the Canary Demo app and save that. But let's say, though, this is something that maybe I've created that I want to send out every Monday morning because this is a weekly report. Now, obviously, there's a lot of other tools. I can create a grid that shows me my mins, my maxes, my averages, my deltas, whatever it is for the past week, and have that automatically emailed out. Well, I can come into my menu bar and go into our automated report section. It'll show me existing scheduled reports, but I want to create a new one. First thing I got to do is find where that report resides within my different directories in Axiom. Here's my Canary Demo app. Okay, so keep in mind that wasn't really created to be a weekly report. It was more just kind of like a live report, but we'll just pretend this was set up for weekly purposes. To create this for a weekly, that's already pre-selected, but I can have monthly reports, or if I want to get very advanced, like I want this report to automatically generate every 8 hours, or based on other criteria, I can do that. Also based on the completion of an event. So keep in mind we have our whole event and calculation module. So if I have an event monitoring my power transformers for when any of those exceed a given temperature for too long of a period, it'll create the event, and then when that event's completed, it'll automatically email me that report. So there's just different ways to schedule these. I'm just going to keep it basic and say, hey, I want this to be scheduled weekly, and then I can come down here and pick which days of the week. In this case, I just want it to come in on Mondays, and I need to determine which time. I would just come in here and say, hey, maybe, 6:30 a.m. on Monday morning. I want that email to be sent to this person or multiple people. You can have many email addresses in here. And then I want that included as an attachment in my email. I can go ahead and add that. So now that report is all set and ready to go, and I'll receive that in my inbox on Monday morning. Thank you so much for your time. I think that wraps up everything I wanted to show you in today's presentation.
Well, this concludes our Canary System webinar. I hope that you've enjoyed this overview of the Canary System and demonstration of the software. At this time, I'd like to welcome you to post your questions in the chat or connect with us offline if you'd prefer to discuss your questions in greater detail with one of our sales or technical staff. If you're ready to take the next step, then there are a number of ways that you can do that. You can try Canary in our online sandbox environment, work through the Canary Academy to learn more, request a demo license of our complete software for you and your teams to test, or schedule a meeting to discuss all of your questions. At Canary, we are committed to your long-term success, and we're excited for you to explore the ways in which the Canary System will help you get the most out of your process data and thrive in your operation. My name is Clark Bosser, and I'd like to say thanks again for joining us for today's Canary webinar.